The bush remains unshaven. Project Notorious, get there, get back, and we have all of your preparation needs for the Birmingham Open. That's right, Dandro and Enigma here coming back at you again with another This Week in Challengers. Elite Season 2 wrapped up last week, obviously, with a pretty fantastic fashion there. We did a lot of predictions. We had some hype around how we thought the rest of the bracket would play out. I was really hoping, Andy, that I was going to be able to come in here and just be able to absolutely gloat all over you, proving that I know ball more than you. And unfortunately, I only get to do that half correct because the bush remain unshaven, baby, and take down the Falcons in order to make it to the grand finals. But you actually were the one that called out that you said, no, I think Project Notorious is going to make their way through that lower bracket, and they're going to be the ones to make it to the grand finals. So both of us were right, but I would just like to go into the record saying I was more right at the end of the day.
Yeah, you were certainly more right, and I'll give props to the Bush fans. I had a bit of fun with them on social media about my predictions here. Hashtag start the hate wagon kind of came out with one of them, which was hilarious. And Secret, who often dropped into my Twitch stream, was having a bit of back and forth with me. But no, Bush looked fantastic. Of course, Fire. I feel like we did a lot of talking about him after Dallas. He was insane out there. I forget the numbers exactly for what he put up, but his S&D performances and such were just glorious throughout this entire elite run. And I feel like he's put himself now in that position. You've won an elite. You've been really dominant through that. You came second in the Open and really could have won that. Like it feels like you were basically 3 correct decisions away from winning the Dallas Open. And Fire put up 1.2 across the entirety of the land. You have a good weekend in Birmingham. I don't know if this guy stays with this team much longer, which would break Bush hearts, but it just shows how much of a wonderful talent pipeline they have built in this team.
1.2 Lou, that's what I'm calling him, because I feel like we saw him arrive to Birmingham ready to fry out. I think it's a really, deserved shout. I know since the very beginning, you and I have kind of been very high on Fire in what he can bring to any roster, right? I was the first person to come now onto this, after we saw TJ leave, was the first sub on in, and now it feels like he's one of the only OGs left. It's him and Byron, right? Are the only two that have kind of been there, what it seems like, from the beginning. And so I would hate to see the Bush lose Fire, right? In maybe a call-up.
Yeah.
But if we're talking firepower SMGs who can do it all, who can make the play, who can do the dirty work, if you're one of those CDL teams, I think Fire is somebody you need to be keeping your eye on. But it was really, kind of good to see them in really full form, right? Obviously, it goes down maybe a little bit longer to what they would have liked, but you go all the way to at least to a map 6, you make it happen there. But hey, it's a 4-2. You can feel very confident about that, and it's against a really, really good Project Notorious roster, right? I think maybe we were riding high a little bit on some of the Falcons hype from the week before for what was there, but because we, obviously you were like, they're going to beat the Bush, and I was like, they're going to beat Project Notorious. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen at all.
It's a weird one with the Falcons because going into the elite, I was a little bit like, I feel like you've just assembled a squad of shooters, and I don't know how well you're going to do here. They did fine in groups. They do very well then in the opening stages of the bracket. And I was like, actually, maybe I was wrong. These guys are going to be great. And then they shit the bed. I mean, to be fair, it's a game 5 against Bush. And then you do lose out to the Project Notorious. But it basically felt like I either buffed or cursed them, depending on what I said. So apologies for that. My bad on that one. But yeah, Project Notorious looking good as we expected. This, of course, Afro Beans, Diamond Con Eric. Yeah, the Diamond Con and Eric boom. So, yeah, this is a very strong roster. One that we're expecting to get better over time as well, considering how recently they've come together. Then again, the Bush roster you're up against, that thing is chopped and changed apart in bits and pieces because of all the wonderful players that they've managed to send up to the league at this point. But yeah, Notorious nearly made the run of dreams, by the way. That is incredible get back all the way through that lower side of the bracket. Drop just in the grand finals. But I think that's a solid elite. You'll walk away with that one and think, okay, we can do even better stage 3.
I think that's a great point you bring up, is that you have to kind of remember with this Project Notorious roster, even though, yes, the Bush has had some changes that have been there, it's been a little bit more methodical, whereas this is just like kind of 4 players who are all coming on in together, who are trying to sort of gel and figure it on out. So maybe coming on in, making this losers bracket run, to me, like, yes, you would have loved to see them, go ahead, take that win. But I think to me, what it means more of is that this is a team that's heating up, getting ahead, getting ready to go into Birmingham, that now has a lot of practice, because their run through that lower bracket wasn't exactly like the easiest of easy teams. I mean, granted, they only dropped 2 maps through those 4 maps on the losers bracket run that's there, which is an insane stat line until they get to that grand finals. But, you know, they go up against that for fun roster of Geomac, Yuli, and Vivid. They go up and then against the other for fun roster, which is for fun and Fellow. They go up against Omit Brooklyn, Falcons Academy. Like, you know, to me, I think if you are a Project Notorious fan, you should be feeling very, very good about that. Yes, you want to see them get that win, but they went up against some very formidable teams, and that's a lot of really, really, really good reps for a roster that is only going to get better from here on out. But the action did not stop there last week, because what happens? You don't even get to revel in your glory if you are the Bush, because you have to immediately get thrown into Cup number 8. Now, normally some of these cups, people don't put a lot of stock in them, right? And anyway, because it's like, hey, we just got done the elite season. Some of the teams are gassed. We even saw it after, you know, stage 1, right? Where you're coming off of the team that wins, hell yeah. And then it's just literally the cup immediately afterwards. They get bowed out pretty early. That's there. So nobody really put stock in it. But this time we have Birmingham coming up, right? I feel like just the way it lined up, this was still going to be extra reps. This is still just more sort of putting yourself in that tournament mindset. Looks very good. We did a lot of hype in that last segment about Project Notorious, and you start to see where this heat up starts to come on through, right? We hear in sports all the time, you want to peak at the right moment. And for Project Notorious, this feels like they're starting to peak as they take home Cup number 8.
Yeah, and they'll love this, because Project Notorious is obviously filled with a lot of European talent. You're returning to Birmingham here. So for people particularly like Afro and Beans, this is home turf.
Yeah.
And you want to be making sure you show up and go big in this event. We knew that this roster would come good eventually. Obviously, you run it mightily close in the elite. Feels like they're getting better every time we see them. Honestly, other than some generational throws, they would have been doing a hell of a lot better already as a foursome. So they, go on a nice little run here. They do get dropped by Brooklyn in that winners finals, but then beat Bush 3-0 to get back up into grands, and then fix whatever it was that was going wrong in that first series to take it 4-2 overall. So yeah, a very, very strong team who managed to take down Omit Brooklyn roster that were on fire on the day as well. So yeah, really looking to, just thinking now, all of a sudden it's like, okay, you went from one of those teams that I think are going to be pretty good in Birmingham to one I'm expecting to be right up there, potentially making Sunday.
Well, that's kind of was our biggest sort of concern when we saw some of these quote unquote super teams get formed, right? When we saw that For Fun roster come together, when we see this roster come together after the Cloud9 explosion happens, that's on it. It was like, hey, can these teams, yes, you're 4 really talented individuals, but can you put it together as a roster to have some like good systems and fundamental COD and like understand how you can manage to make those mistakes in between series to series and how you can overcome them. And I think just seeing this is a great way to do it. They do get brought to a map 5 against that FaZe Falcons roster, which had me a little bit scary. I'm not going to lie, but I feel like that was maybe a little bit of the wake up call they needed, right? Because they then go on to 3-0 Huntsman. You mentioned it. They lose 3-1 to Omit Brooklyn, but it's a 3-0 against Bush and then a 4-2 back against Omit Brooklyn. And I think that looks really, really good for that team. But I think we also have to talk about sort of the other side of it too, like their opponents, right? With Omit Brooklyn, because this was, I think, our biggest surprise coming out of the elite was that we kind of expected Omit Brooklyn to be this really big powerhouse force, and they kind of go out with a whimper here. Now they come into the cup, and it feels like maybe they're kind of one of those teams who have figured out some of the issues, right? Everybody knows their role, how they want to play and calm as a team, because the Omit Brooklyn, they looked very good over that cup weekend. Unfortunately, like I said, they lose the grand finals, but their run, I think, is really impressive when you look at some of the opponents they had to face.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. One of the things I just feel generally with this team is like their ceiling far and out blows everyone else out the water. It's just their inconsistency sometimes. I think a lot of that lies in Real and just the way he is as a player. He is either taking over a map or dropping 0.60s at the minute. I don't know what's going on with him, but it's looking at the rest of the roster as well. I guess for some players like Asim and stuff, you're trying to balance that out a little bit. You're just like dependable 0.9 player that's going to get a lot of the dirty work done. But yeah, it all comes together on the day. You make a hell of a run, as you said, because the teams you beat off as well, it's Protoss squad in round of 16, Falcons Academy that you 3-0, Bush that you beat, Notorious that you beat, and then eventually you just run out of steam. And sometimes when you win the winners finals, you get into grands. If you're waiting on teams to then complete the lower bracket, you can just be caught coming in cold sometimes. And unfortunately, with the format at the minute, we don't hand any advantage to those who've come through the winners bracket. And if you'd had that, maybe we're talking a different victor in the end. So yeah, Brooklyn, a very strong team. And again, just peaking at the right time. The one thing for me that just changes this up, though, in terms of how I'm talking about Notorious is I can never guarantee that these guys are going to be on and hot at the same time.
Yeah.
It feels like one of them's popping off at one moment while the other one's dropping, and that kind of just sums them up a bit.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. It feels like really high ceilings, really low floors with that team. And obviously in any type of competitive setting, you want to try and narrow that band as much as you can. So I would love that. You're all right. Listen, hey, I'd rather teams take series and everybody's dropping a 0.9 than maybe you lose a series and somebody has a 1.4, but your boy's got a 0.7, you know? Like we've seen those series time and time again where it's like, wow, that guy was shooting. And it's kind of like, does it matter though? Like if you're losing the series, like I'd rather see you make the right plays at the right time and then allow yourself those sort of X factor moments. But if your worst is just okay, then hey, that's a pretty good spot to be in. As a team. But I think you brought up basically my point overall is that, well, yes, Project Notorious seems to be heating up. So is Omit Brooklyn. Both these going to Birmingham. I think it's going to be really fun if they end up meeting in the bracket again. And I know it's been a little bit, but Andy, I think it is important for us to talk about EMEA for once, because it's been a little bit of a sleeper region, it feels like, the last couple of weeks. But going into Birmingham, we need to turn our attention to a lot of these teams, because I think we're going to see a lot of these rosters on land.
Yes, and we talked a lot about kind of right time to peak. Exceptional Gaming will take away the cup here. It is a banger of a final, actually. Game 7 in the end between them and Rock. And just after the back of a Game 5 as well, Exceptional Gaming liking to make their series go long late in the day. But it's a case of Exceptional Gaming had a really bad... If you're unsure, by the way, this is the Frenchman. Exceptional Gaming is a German roster, a German org, I believe. But this is the Frenchman of Cobra, Linz, Brezi, and Melko. These four had a torrid time of it over in Dallas. It was a very poor run, bowed out with a whimper. So for them to kind of go big in the cup just before we then head off to Birmingham, that's the right timing. That's exactly what you want to see, because all of us who love COD, even if you're just a neutral generally, you want the biggest teams to be fighting fit on the day. And yeah, this is the right way to set themselves up for that.
The only thing that does cause me a little bit of worry is if you look at their bracket run through here, it's a 3-0 against Ask. Apologies, my friends. I'm not familiar with that roster. A 3-0 against Treaty 1, who've been around for a little bit, right? And that we're, obviously pretty aware of who's there. But then it's a 3-0 against P7, and that's kind of, to me, the first round where I'm like, okay, that's like the first roster that's really solid. But then what happens? It's a 3-1 against Exceptional, and then you 3-2 P7, who you already 3-0'd that was there, right? So it's like, okay, you're coming in, and I look at Rock, and Rock goes against Alula, L8 Unlimited, the EU for fun roster, right? It feels like a little bit for Rock, maybe a little bit of a more tougher opponents. It feels like exactly what we talked about with NA with Omit Brooklyn, right? Where it's kind of like they fight some of the top teams of the region and then just maybe lose a little bit of steam when it comes to the grand finals that's there. So I think this bodes well for Exceptional Gaming and the Frenchies that are coming on in, but I kind of need to see a little bit more just based on, like you mentioned, how they performed in Dallas.
I agree. I think that this is a weird one because there's 3 teams out of the EMEA that we're really looking at to make a difference on LAN, right? It's going to be Rock, Exceptional, and P7. I think P7 is still working on a few things. They bring in aspects and take Denzer out. So I think they're still working on a couple of bits and pieces there. 1 minute they look incredibly hot, especially Harry. He's had some ridiculous hardpoint performances and just respawns in general. And every now and again they just drop a map or two where you go, is this just not part of your map pool? Is this just where you guys just haven't fleshed a couple of things out yet against teams that have been together pretty much all year? Maybe it's some of that. For me, I'm still looking at Rock as a really good team. I think until we are shown otherwise right now, we've got to consider them a contender, obviously, after winning Dallas. Exceptional Gaming, you are completely right to call it out. This run, while you do win the cup, I don't think it gives me as much faith to believe that you're still going to do really good in Birmingham. I just hope it's a better performance than it was in Dallas. Yeah,
and I think that's what I'm looking at. It's like, what's kind of scary to me, man, is that Rock flies all the way over to Dallas, and it is just belt ass, right, where they are able to win that. I mean, they don't have to travel nearly as far this time, right? So they're going to have time to rest. I think it's only roughly a 6-hour flight, I think, from maybe Riyadh over into to obviously Birmingham there. So that's a lot better than, the flight that you and I have had to make a couple times, or at least I've had to make, which is from America to Riyadh is 22 hours of travel day, right? So it is rough, and the fact that those boys were able to endure that and still manage to come out on top. It's a little bit lighter this time. They probably have a little bit more opportunity to scrim, to play. I'm a little bit scary, man. It's scary to see what Rock might be able to do at Birmingham. It's there. I mean, if they go back to back, I think that's a statement for them to be able to make. And of course, it would not be a challengers bracket type of event with us putting our reputation on the line and trying to make some type of predictions So far, don't spot check any of our previous predictions at all, please. I think we're
Please.
shooting 50-50 right now overall, and I think I'm being
At
generous with that one. But
Good God.
what you see on your screen here, these are all the top 20 seeds that we have coming on in, of course, to the Birmingham Open. Now, obviously, there's going to be more than just these 20 teams playing, but these are the top 20 seeds coming on in based on pro points, right? So,
Yeah.
and what that means is that these are going to be the teams with players that you probably have heard of and that you know. Now, does that mean that some team of 4 guys who want to sign up to the Birmingham Open and come on in and try and make a run through the bracket, is it impossible for them to do so? Absolutely not. But these are probably the teams we're going to be taking a look at. So Enigma and I thought it'd be fun. We're going to pick who we think is our overall winner. Like, what team do we think goes into Birmingham and comes out the champions of land? We also are going to be picking some dark horse teams as well, okay? To see who do we think maybe is a team that could maybe go and win it all, or even at least just can get a little streaky, make a deep run into a bracket, defy all odds, give them a little bit of hype, give them a little passion. So I'm going to let you kickstart, my friend. Give me your overall winner. Who do you think is showing up to the Birmingham Open and is walking away a champion?
I think that the team that's going to walk away as victors of Birmingham, and this was a really bloody difficult one, is going to be P7 Notorious. I'm going to go with them. I think Afro, Beans, Eric Boom, you're returning back onto European soil. I think that's going to be a real homecoming moment for them. They're going to have a lot of love in the crowd, a lot of support. Diamond Con's just going to tag along with that. Bit of a, don't worry, fellas, I'm here as well. I exist. But they win the cup. They looked great in the elite bracket. This is a team that I think is hitting form all at the right time. And yeah, we had to pick one. I'm going with them.
Listen, I think it's a good, solid pick, right? After everything we just said, some hype. I think they are peaking right now. But here's the thing, Enigma. While I think P7, Project Notorious, I think they're a good team. I think they're very solid. I think they're one of the best we have in challengers. But here's the thing, my man. They ain't beating the Bush, baby. That's right. The Telluride Bush will take the Birmingham Bush. Bush beat Birmingham. I have so many alliterations going on here today.
Are you still on the Bush hype, considering they slandered the hell out of Boston Breach? Like, it sounds like
I can look over that. There's like four, and then there's like 4 Breach super fans in existence, and that might be. It's like me and T-Dog Smitty, and I'm just hoping that there's 2 other people in the community. You got to pick and choose, okay? It's you don't grow up. You don't grow up in New England and being a Boston fan and not have people hating you. Okay, that's just gonna happen. So,
as for your prediction, I can definitely see it happening. Look, if Lou's dropping 1.2s again, then
1.2 Lou, baby.
This squad's gonna be real good. They just missed out last time in Dallas. You've got Abe now added in. That is some extra firepower for sure. Yeah, I can definitely see your pick happening. So, as much as there's some weird bias going on there, coming from a Gentle Mates fan, and also the whole Boston Breach situation, yeah, all right, fair enough. Our 2 teams to meet in grand finals.
I would love that. I think that would be a great grand finals. I think we'd all be very much enjoying that grand finals if that were to happen. But on the flip side, my friend, we also have to pick 2 teams that we think are going to be dark horses. I also realize now that I picked the word dark horse, and then there's Dark Horse Esports from EMEA, but they're not on this list, so we're going to be A-okay. Totally fine. Who do we think your dark horse is going to be of Birmingham? Who's going to be a team that maybe seemingly shows up out of nowhere? Just that 4 that, hey, they're going to click on Friday, and they are just going to just start slamming from start to finish.
Well, you need to click on Friday because the tournament is mostly over by the end of Friday. It will be. I'm not going with a team that I expect to win it as my dark horse, but I'm going with one that potentially like a top 4 kind of situation that would have been unexpected on paper. I'm going with Stallions. This Icons, Rupert, KB, Millie, you and me got to cover a lot of them early on in the year. They look very good. We were kind of heartbroken when they broke up. Felt like a very well-balanced squad that just kind of got business done.
Yeah.
I would love that story to be that they come back together and make a deep run.
I think it's a good thing. I mean, I would love to see that just for like the Stallions branding, I think, right? I think Zuma's been a little, I did a whole episode on it last week, right? Where we talked about this roster and how we're really excited to see what sort of prestige can they bring back to the Stallions. Now, what's interesting is that I'm also going to pick the Stallions, Enigma, but not the same Stallions. I'm picking the other Stallions roster, the Omnia X Stallions roster of Swooty, Darkside, Flames, and Dak, okay? I think it's hard to sometimes bet against Flames and Dak as a duo kind of coming in here together. Swooty has kind of been bouncing around. He's always looked like pretty okay. And I think just like maybe having a roster, you look at a couple of his past rosters, hasn't always had, I feel like, the firepower alongside him, right? Swooty to me is like very much a player who needs that energy, needs the hype around him, right? The guy's a character, okay? He's got the charisma, he's got the attitude, the personality. But I think if he can have people who can help bolster the positive side of that, I think he becomes a little bit of a problem. And when you look at really established Challengers players like Darkside, Flames, and Dak, this is another Challengers event for them, right? They've done this. They've been here before. They're experienced, seasoned professionals. And LAN hits different, buddy. You and I know that more than anyone else. That sometimes when you get on LAN, you're shaking a little bit, right? DreamHack's a big area. You're in a big hall, right? You're not, it ain't a hotel conference room like Dallas anymore, right? You're going to hear CDL rumbling. You might have Warzone people shouting out near you. You got to be ready to be locked in. I think that's just a team of experience that can come out swinging.
I thought I'd gone with an outside figure, but yeah, fair enough. Omnia Stallions it is then, seed 15. I'm very on board with Darkside and Flames. They've obviously done great bits this year. Dak, I feel, kind of sits in a weird, like, on the edge of the cusp of the conversation. Swooty, yeah, he's had a rough run of it recently. He's kind of got thrown into a couple of situations, been passed around a little bit, but hopefully, I saw a tweet from him earlier kind of being like very grateful about getting to do what he loves in foreign countries and all that stuff. So hopefully, they make the run happen, but I fancy my team over yours. I'm going to be straight with you.
Okay, well, hey, we'll wait and see. One thing that's there. As we go over to look very, very quickly, there's also just a couple of marquee matchups. This looks terrible on your guys' screen because of an early segment we did. Give me 1 second here, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. We do it live here at the Quick Fix. Say okay. We can see a couple of matchups that are happening on this winner side. We don't need to go through all of them, but just looking at it here, is there any that you might just be really excited to maybe go ahead and take a peek at, maybe kind of tune in if they happen to maybe be on one of our featured streams that you think maybe people should tune into? Give me one. I won't pick one. I'll let you throw me one.
I think, honestly, this is tough to go with one. Christ. Wait, no, that's not the team I was thinking of. Maybe, I mean, this one's maybe for you, actually. The Stallions, Omnia, and Able Esport. That could be a fun one because Able Esport have this young lad called DK on their roster. And this is a lad who's coming through an EMEA and he's suddenly putting up ridiculous numbers. And everyone's kind of a bit like, is this a new face that's actually going to start to appear towards the top end of EMEA, whether by the end of this season or the start of next? So, I think that could be a real proving ground for him, as well as that entire roster. But then you're coming up against the Omnia Stallions, they're going to be well backed. Could be a real tasty one.
I think it could be, my friend. A lot of action happening in Birmingham. We're obviously very excited to be able to sit back, watch all of it unfold, and be able to take a peek. I know we're going to be bouncing around a lot of Warzone that weekend, but I'm just going to be laid back watching a ton of COD. I know that for sure. I know you're going to be doing the same. That's there. But very excited to watch all these matchups. Go ahead and break on down. Season 2 wraps on up. We have people blasting each other in Cup 8. And now we have the Birmingham Open this weekend, my friend. I know there's been a lot of hype, a lot of energy about the chance to compete back on LAN. What do you think we might see different in Birmingham as compared to Dallas?
I think that you are going to see American players struggling not only with UK food, but with time zones. Jet lag is a real thing, and it's not often that the Americans have to deal with it, to be completely honest with you. It hits hard. It hits like a truck, and we know that the Friday schedule is brutal. So those players are, I'm hoping, getting over early, getting some boot camping in. I know we've been seeing a lot of travel on the timeline, but this, more than ever, is very important to get yourself in and rested up and ready to go, because that Friday run, you're going to need every bit of stamina you can about you, and the Americans are about to find out what that feels like when you've not got enough sleep.
Well, I know one thing is that our episode next week is sure to be a banger with all the action that we have happening this weekend. But as for this week, my friends, that has been This Week in Challengers. Let us know, who do you think is taking the Birmingham Open in the comments? Are we faded on our predictions? Somebody ride with me on my dark horse, please, for the love of God. Make me feel good about it. With that being said, I'm Dandro. That's Enigma. We'll see you for next week in Challengers.